The eviction notice slid under the studio door while the music was still playing. Kira Simone is 28, black, beautiful, and she built everything herself. She teaches advanced ballet at one of Seoul's most prestigious academies. The mirrors, the bar, the reputation, all hers. Then a contract renewal appears at her feet, the rent almost impossible, and a colleague mentions that someone has been asking who owns the space. She hides the fear. She kneels to calm a terrified new student in the back of the room. The next afternoon, a black car stops outside. The father comes for the girl himself. He does not send a driver. He steps out in a charcoal gray suit, a black dragon tattoo climbing the left side of his neck. His name is Yoon Tae-jun. They call him the Quiet One. He watches Kira pull a smile from his frightened daughter. Then he asks one thing, polite and low. Does she teach Monday through Friday? A platinum watch against a studio mirror. A fleet of cars against a woman who takes the bus. Every afternoon he comes back. Every afternoon the distance shrinks. But what he was really doing behind that silence, what he decided to buy without telling her. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Kira counted the beat out loud and clapped once, sharp, on the downbeat. 12 girls came off the bar at the same instant. Almost. The third from the end was late again, her arm floating up a half-second behind the others, and Kira watched it in the mirror without turning her head. Again, she said, from the preparation. She didn't raise her voice. She never had to. The studio on the 4th floor of the Yehua Academy had walls of mirror and a floor that had been sanded and resealed the summer she signed her first lease, and the sound carried without help. Her voice moved along the sprung boards and reached the far corner where the youngest ones stood, and they straightened before they knew why. The piano recording turned over. Kira lifted onto the ball of one foot and let her weight settle there, showing them the shape rather than saying it. Rise. Hold. The hold was where they all failed, because the hold was patience, and 11-year-olds had none. She held it 3 counts longer than the music asked. Then she came down soft, heel kissing the floor, and turned to face the room. You are not falling, she told them. You are choosing to come down. There is a difference, and your body knows it even when you don't. She wore the white leotard she taught in, pearl white, and a light rose skirt that moved a half-beat after she did. The thin gold chain at her throat caught the window light when she turned, the small heart pendant sitting flat against her collarbone. Her braids were pulled back off her face and fell heavy past her shoulders down her back. She had danced 10 hours the day before and would dance 10 today, and none of it showed in how she stood. Places. They scattered to the bar. Kira crossed to the sound dock to reset the track, and that was when she saw the paper. It was on the floor by the studio door, white, folded once, pushed under from the hallway side while she'd had her back turned. She knew what it was before she picked it up, the way you know a knock at a certain hour. She let the girls run the exercise without her for 8 bars. Then she walked over, unhurried, and bent and took the paper between 2 fingers. She opened it against her thigh so the room couldn't see. Lease renewal. Yehua Building, 4th floor, Studio C. The number at the bottom had grown, not doubled. They were smarter than that. But grown enough that the arithmetic she did in her head every month stopped working. She read the figure twice. The second time she made herself feel nothing, which was its own kind of work, and she folded the paper back along its crease and slid it into the waistband of her skirt, where it sat cold against her hip. In the mirror, 12 girls turned in unison. She had missed the correction she'd meant to give. It didn't matter. Their arms were fine now. Fear made them careful, and being watched made them careful, and they didn't know she wasn't watching. Good, she said, and meant it, and hated that she meant it, while the paper burned at her waist. The track ended. She let them rest, walking the line of the bar, with her hands loose at her sides, adjusting a wrist here, tapping the inside of a knee there, to remind a girl where her weight should live. She had built this. Nobody had handed it to her. She had come to Seoul at 22 with a suitcase and 2 years of company work in her legs, and a name that opened no doors here, and she had knocked on all of them anyway. Studio C had been a storage room, with water stains when she took it. She'd paid for the floor herself. 10 minutes, she said. Water, then center work. The girls broke apart into the noise girls make. Kira went to the corner where her bag was, and crouched over it, and she took a slow breath she let no one see, and she pressed the heel of her hand once against her sternum, as if she could push the tightness back down. You saw it then. She looked up. Minso stood over her, arms crossed, still in her rehearsal clothes. Minso taught the intermediate girls in Studio B, down the hall, and had been at Yehua 2 years longer than Kira, and knew the building the way you know, a house you grew up in. I saw it, Kira said. She stood. She didn't take the paper out. Mine came under the door Tuesday. Minso's mouth did something flat. Same jump. They're pushing everyone at once. Ji-hye, on 2, is already talking about moving to Mapo. Mapo's 40 minutes from these families. That's the point. If she can't hold her students, she can't hold her lease. And then it's an empty floor and they lease it to someone who can pay. Minso tilted her head. You can pay? Kira smiled the smile she used on nervous mothers. I always find it. That's not what I asked. Kira held the smile a beat longer than was comfortable, and let it answer for her. Down the hall, a child laughed at something. The radiator under the window ticked as it warmed. Minso leaned in, lower now. There's something else. My landlord contact. The woman who does the actual paperwork, not the front office. She told me somebody's been asking who owns the building. The management company owns the building. No, she said somebody's been asking who owns it, who actually holds the paper. Above the management company, Minsu watched her face. People don't ask that to rent a floor. They ask that to buy one. The tightness in Kira's chest moved outward, a slow cold spreading under the ribs, and she kept her expression exactly where it was, because that was a muscle too, and she had trained it longer than any other. Did she say who? She didn't know. A lawyer made the call. That's all. Min Seo shrugged, but it wasn't a careless shrug. Could be nothing. Could be a developer wanting to tear it down and put up something with a coffee franchise on the ground floor. Either way, it isn't good for us. Either way, Kira agreed. A girl by the door called out, Teacher, is it center now? And Kira lifted a hand. 1 minute, and the girl subsided. Minso touched her arm briefly, the touch of a person who has run out of things to say that help. You built the best studio in this building out of a mop closet. I just don't want to watch someone with more money than you decide he wants the mop closet back. She went, her steps quick down the hall toward Studio B, and Kira stood a moment longer in the corner, with the folded paper against her hip, and the cold still spreading, and the mirror giving her back a woman who looked entirely calm. She turned to the room. Center, she said. 2 lines, little ones in front. They arranged themselves. Kira walked to the middle of the floor and stood where they could all see her and clapped the count and began, and for 11 minutes, she stopped being a woman who might lose everything and became only a body, teaching other bodies how to move. This was the thing she had never been able to explain to anyone she'd dated, the men who thought dance was a hobby she'd outgrow, that inside the count there was no rent. Inside the count there was only the next transfer of weight, the next line of an arm, the exact place a spine should lengthen. It was the one room in her life where fear could not follow her. Then she saw the new girl. She was in the back line, half hidden behind a taller child, and she had stopped. Everyone else was mid-phrase, arms opening to second, and this one had gone still, with her hands frozen at her chest and her eyes wide and wet in the mirror, small for her age. Black hair pulled into a low bun that someone careful had done for her, a few strands already loose, a little silver clip, pale leotard, white tights, pink slippers, all of it perfect and new, the outfit of a child, dressed by someone who wanted to get it right. The girl's chin had begun to shake. Kira knew the look. It was the look of a child who has understood, all at once and too late, that she cannot do the thing, that everyone can see she cannot do the thing, and that there is no door close enough to reach before she comes apart. She kept the count going with her voice, and open, and close, keep breathing, so the room wouldn't turn and stare, and she moved. Not fast. Fast would have made it worse, would have made it an event. She walked the line the way she'd walked the bar, adjusting a shoulder in the front row that didn't need adjusting, tapping a wrist, until she reached the back and was simply there beside the girl, as if she'd meant to be all along. "Keep your friends going," she said quietly to the girl next to them, and that child kept dancing, proud to be trusted, and the phrase rolled on down the line. Kira crouched. She brought herself under the girl's eyeline, so the girl had to look down, not up, and looking down at a person is easier than looking up at a room. "What's your name?" Kira asked, low, only for her. The girl's lips moved. Nothing came. "That's all right. You don't have to say it yet." Kira reached out and, without touching the wet face, gently unfolded the child's frozen hands from where they'd locked at her chest. She held them, small and cold, in her own. "Feel that? Your hands are freezing. That happens when you forget to breathe. Everyone forgets. I forgot my first day too." The girl blinked. A tear went sideways down her cheek, and she hated it. Kira could see her hate it, could see the effort not to let another one come. "I don't know it," the girl whispered. "The steps. Everyone knows them." "They don't." Kira said it plainly. A fact, not comfort. "They've had 6 weeks. You've had 6 minutes. If you knew it already, I'd have nothing to teach you, and then what would I do all day?" Something flickered in the small face. Not a smile. The doorway before a smile. "How old are you?" Kira asked. 11. A pause. Almost. Almost 11, and you walked into a room full of strangers in a leotard. "Do you know how many grown women won't do that?" Kira let a corner of her mouth lift. "You're braver than half the mothers out in that hallway. You just don't know it yet, because your hands are cold." The girl looked at her own hands in Kira's, as if checking whether that was true. Her breathing had slowed a fraction. Somewhere behind them, a slipper squeaked against the floor, and a child giggled, and the ordinary noise of the room went on without either of them, and that was the point, that the room went on and did not stop to watch her fail. "Here." Kira turned the girl's body a quarter, so she faced the mirror straight on, instead of hiding behind the taller child. "You watch me. Only me. Not them. Can you do that? When I open my arms, you open yours. If you're late, you're late. Late is fine. Late is just early for the next one." The girl looked at her in the glass. This stranger crouched beside her in white, and something in the child unlocked by a single notch. She nodded. Kira rose. She rejoined her own count, as if she'd never left it, standing now beside the back line instead of in front, and she lifted her arms slow, exaggerated, telegraphing every move a half-second early so the girl could catch it. "Open." The girl opened, late, arms crooked, eyes fixed on Kira's in the mirror. "Close." The girl closed. She was half a beat behind the whole room, and she did not fall apart, and by the third phrase, the shaking in her chin had stopped, and by the 5th, She had found the taller girl's rhythm on her own and let go of Kira's eyes and simply danced, badly and completely, the way you are supposed to at 11. Kira let the track finish. She did not make a thing of it. She clapped the ending, said yes, good, all of you, and the girls dissolved into their coats and their bags, and the mothers appearing at the door, and the new one gathered her little cardigan and looked back once at Kira, with an expression too large for her face, before her turn came to leave. One mother lingered at the door while the others filed out. She had a soft face and an expensive coat, and she waited until the last child was in the corridor before she spoke. "My daughter cries in the car," the woman said, "before class, every week." She said it like an apology. "You're the only teacher who's kept her. The last place asked us to leave after a month." "She doesn't need to leave anywhere," Kira said. "She needs time. Bring her Thursday. If you're still here Thursday." The woman said it lightly, the way people repeat a thing they've heard. "There's a rumor the floor is closing," one of the other mothers. "There's no rumor worth carrying," Kira said, gentle, final. "Thursday, 4 o'clock. The woman went. Kira listened to her heels go down the stairwell, and then took her phone from her bag, and stood with it in her hand, and did not dial. There was a number saved in it for the bank that handled the small loan she'd taken to redo the floor 2 summers ago, and a number for the front office of the management company, and neither of them was a call that ended with her keeping more of anything. She had 31 students. She'd counted them on the train that morning without meaning to, the way you count money you don't have, and 31 at the current fee did not reach the new number on the paper, and 31 was already more children than most floors in this building carried. There was no room above her to climb into. She had built the top of what she could build. She put the phone away without calling anyone. The room emptied of its last sound. Kira stood in the middle of the sprung floor she had paid for with her own hands, and let the quiet come down. The mirrors gave her back the empty studio, the bar, the window, the woman alone in white. She reached into the waistband of her skirt and took out the folded paper and opened it one more time under the fading afternoon light, and read the number that no longer worked, and this time, alone, she let her jaw tighten just slightly, the only place she ever let it show. Somebody was asking who owned the building. Not renting, owning. She refolded the paper along its worn crease. She had come to this city with a suitcase and built a floor out of a storage room, and she had done it without a single door being opened for her, and the thing about a life you build alone is that there is no one else standing on it when the ground begins to move. She crossed to the dock and shut off the piano. She picked up her bag, and through the window, 4 floors down in the gray light of a Seoul afternoon, a long black car pulled to the curb outside the Yehua building and stopped, engine idling, and did not move. Kira didn't see it yet. She was looking at the paper in her hand. The car was still there when Kira reached the ground floor. She saw it through the glass of the front doors, long and black against the gray curb, and she almost walked past it, the way she walked past everything else that had nothing to do with her. She had the paper folded twice in the waistband of her skirt. She had 31 students in her head and a number that would not shrink. She had her bag on her shoulder and her keys in her fist, and she wanted the train. Then the small girl came down the stairs behind her. Kira heard the zapatilla before she saw her. 2 soft steps, a pause, 2 more, the careful descent of a child who counted stairs. She turned. The new student stood on the landing with her bag hugged to her chest, her collant still on under an open coat, her hair loosening from the coke, the silver clip barely holding. The girl looked at the doors. She looked at the black car. She did not move toward it. "You're not going home?" Kira asked. The girl's mouth opened and closed. "I'm waiting." "For your mother?" A shake of the head, small. "For him." Kira followed the girl's eyes to the car. The rear door had not opened. The engine turned over low, patient. A sound with money in it. She thought of Minso on the stairs an hour ago. The word passed hand to hand. Someone asking who really owned the building. A lawyer's question. She thought of it, and then she let it go, because the child beside her had started to tremble again. The same tremble she had thawed out of her in the studio, and a tremble undone once always comes back cheaper the second time. "He's late," the girl said, as if it were her own fault. "He's here," Kira said. "That's not late." The door of the car opened. A man got out. He rose without hurry, the way tall men rise when they have decided the world will wait, and he closed the door behind him with 2 fingers instead of a slam. Charcoal suit, dark against the gray street, cut close to a lean frame. He buttoned the jacket as he crossed the curb. Along the left side of his neck, climbing out from under the collar, ran a line of black ink Kira could not read from the doorway, and did not need to read to understand. Men did not wear that on their skin in this part of Seoul by accident. He came up the 3 steps. He did not look at the car he had left running. He looked at the girl first, and then, for a longer moment, at Kira. "Seoul," he said. So that was her name. The girl let go of her bag with one hand and reached for him, and stopped halfway, the reach unfinished, the hand dropping back to the strap. Kira saw it. The child wanted the father and braked before she got there. She had seen that in adults. She had never liked seeing it in someone who counted stairs. "You waited inside," the man said. It was not a question, and it was not a scold. He was reading the girl the way Kira had read her at the bar, checking for the crack before it opened. "The lesson ran," Seoul said. "A little." "Did it?" Kira stepped down onto the landing, so she stood between the 2 of them, not to block, only to be counted. "It ran because she stayed after," she said. She wanted to try the center again, on her own. The man's eyes moved to her fully then. Dark, deep-set, giving away nothing, the calm of a man who had learned that stillness made other people talk. Kira had a whole face of that trick herself. She recognized a colleague. "On her own," he repeated. Once through, badly. Kira let the corner of her mouth go. All the way to the end, that's the part that counts. Something moved behind his expression and did not reach it. He looked down at his daughter. "You did the whole thing?" Seoul's chin dipped. "It was ugly." "I didn't ask if it was ugly." The girl's shoulders came up around her ears, waiting for the rest of it. Kira had heard the rest of it 100 times from 100 parents. "Then why can't you do it in front of us? Then what am I paying for? Then stop crying." She braced for it on the child's behalf. It did not come. "Then you did it," the man said. Flat, final. He crouched. The suit pulled at the knee and he ignored it. And he brought his face down to the level of hers on the landing. "Ugly is allowed. Stopping isn't. You didn't stop." The girl looked at him. The tremble left her hands. Kira watched the whole thing happen in the space of 4 seconds and revised him. She had filed him under one kind of man on sight: the car, the ink, the 2-fingered doors, the stillness that cost other people money. She kept the file open now. A different page had turned inside it. He straightened. He looked at Kira over the top of his daughter's head. "You're the teacher." Kira Simone. Yoon Tae-jun. He gave the name the way he gave everything, without weight, as if names were things you set down rather than announced. "She's spoken about you, twice. That's a record." 2 lessons, Kira said. "So that's every one." The faint thing near his mouth again, gone before it settled. "She said you talk during the hard part, so no one turns around." Kira felt the small surprise of being quoted accurately by a child. "The room's a mirror," she said. "When one dancer breaks, 12 heads turn to watch her break. I keep the heads facing front. By talking. By counting. Loudly. About nothing. She shifted the bag on her shoulder. The count doesn't care whether you're good. It just keeps going. Some of them learn to hold on to that. Taejun did not answer at once. He looked at her as though the sentence had landed somewhere he had not expected a dance teacher to reach, and he was deciding whether to acknowledge the landing. Beside him, Seoa had gone quiet in the good way. The way of a child who hears two adults she trusts speak to each other over her head, and understands, without the words, that she is safe between them. "How often does she come?" he said. "Right now, twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday." "That's not enough." Kira had heard. "That's too much." And, "That's too expensive." And, "She'll grow out of it." She had not, in some time, heard a parent stand on a cold step and say a child needed more of the thing that frightened her. "For what?" she asked, honestly. "For whatever you did in there." He said it without warmth and without apology, a man stating a supply problem. "She got in the car last week, and she talked the whole way home. She hasn't done that in a year." The number sat there between them. A year. Kira did not pick it up. She had a rule about the Farida of strangers. She left it where it fell unless it climbed into her studio, and this one, she suspected, already had, in the shape of a small girl with cold hands. "I teach advanced Monday to Friday," she said. "The younger group is Tuesday and Thursday." She's placed with the younger group because of her age, not her level. Her level is above it. Then move her up. It's not a favor to move a child up too fast. It's a way to make them quit. He absorbed that. He was, she would think later, a man who absorbed corrections, the way a wall absorbs a thrown ball. No give, no offense. The thing simply stopped and considered. "Then I'm asking the wrong question," he said. "What would you do?" Kira glanced down at Seoa, who was pretending very hard not to be listening to the two of them arrange her life. "Private sessions," Kira said, "before the group class. 20 minutes, 3 times a week, just her and me at the bar. She builds the thing where no one can turn around and watch. Then she takes it into the group when she's ready, not before. 3 times. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Around the group days. That's 5 afternoons she'd be here. 5. He said it as though 5 were a small price he had already paid in his head. "You teach every one of those days? Monday to Friday?" It was such a plain question. It was the plainest question a parent could ask about a schedule. And yet he asked it the way a man asks the one thing he has come to find out. All the other words arranged in front of it, like furniture in a room built around a single door. "Monday to Friday," Kira said. "I'm here every one." He nodded once. That was all. "Then she'll be here every one." Behind them, a phone rang inside the black car, muffled, insistent. He did not turn toward it. Whoever it was could hold, the way the street held, the way everything apparently held for Yoon Tae-jun, until he decided otherwise. Kira noticed that too, and added it to the open file. "There's a form," she said, "for the private track. Rates, times, the cancellation policy. I'll have it at the desk tomorrow. Send it to me." He reached into the jacket and produced a card, matte, 1 line of text, no title under the name. She took it. Whatever he did for the frequency of black cars and the calm of held phones, the card would not tell her, and she understood, suddenly, that this was the point of the card. A name with the rest of the sentence removed. "I don't usually do private sessions," she said. "Why not?" "Time. I have 31 students and a..." She stopped. She was not going to say, "And a lease renewal I can't pay." To a stranger on a step, she was not going to say it to anyone, and a full week already. He looked at her for a moment, as though he had heard the swallowed half of the sentence anyway, as though the pause had a shape he recognized. Men who lived behind mat cards were good at hearing the swallowed halves of sentences. It was, she thought, most of what they did. "Name your rate for the 3 sessions," he said. "Whatever it is, I'll agree to it before you send the form." It was the wrong thing to say, and he did not know it was the wrong thing, and that told her more about him than the ink or the car. He thought money was the reassurance. He thought the largeness of the number was the kindness. He had not learned yet, or had learned it and forgotten it, that to a woman who had laid her own floor with her own small loan, an open checkbook did not read as respect. It read as a hand reaching toward the one thing she had built alone. "I'll name a normal rate," she said, "the same one everyone pays, and you'll pay it the same way everyone does." He went still in a new way, not the practiced stillness, a real one, brief, the stillness of a man set down somewhere he was not used to standing. "All right," he said. "All right?" Seo tugged his sleeve. "Appa, the car. It can wait. The man is angry. The man is always angry." He put his hand on the top of his daughter's head, once, and steered her gently toward the steps. "Say goodbye to your teacher." Seo turned. She looked up at Kira with the whole of her small, serious face, and Kira crouched to meet it, the way she would crouch to meet a dancer who had done the ugly thing all the way to the end. "Monday," Kira said. 20 minutes, just us. We'll fix the arms. They're bad. They're new. Bad and new aren't the same word." Kira tucked a loose strand back toward the silver clip, the smallest fix, the kind a mother makes without thinking. "You already did the hard part today. Everything after this is easier." The girl believed her the way children believe a person who has never yet lied to them. She nodded, and something in her stood up straighter, and she went down the 3 steps holding the rail with one hand and her bag with the other. Taejun did not follow at once. "She sleeps now," he said, low, so the girl at the curb would not hear. It came out of him without his choosing it, the way the true thing sometimes leaves a careful man when he is looking at his child and not at the person he is speaking to. "Since she started here." "She used to." He stopped. He had said more than he built to say, and Kira watched him notice it and close the door on it, gently, the way he closed car doors. "It matters," he finished. "That's all." "Then it matters," Kira said. She did not reach for the crack he had shown her. She left it where it fell, but she saw it, and she would remember where it lay. He looked at her one more moment. Whatever he was measuring, he did not say the sum aloud. "Monday," he said. "Monday." He went down the steps. He opened the rear door of the black car himself instead of waiting for it to be opened, and he handed his daughter in first, and he got in after her, and the door shut on 2 fingers, soft. The car pulled from the curb and folded into the gray street and was gone, and the sound with money in it went with it. Kira stood on the step in the cold she had not felt since the 4th floor. She looked at the card in her hand. 1 line, a name and nothing under it. She turned it over, blank on the back, matte on the back, the same refusal on both sides. She thought of the paper folded in her waistband, the number that would not shrink, and she thought, without meaning to, that she had just agreed to add 3 afternoons to a week that already did not close, for a child who counted stairs and a father who paid attention to the wrong things in the right direction. She should have said no. She had built a life out of saying no to exactly this, the large gesture, the open hand, the man who thought the size of a thing was the same as its care. She knew the shape of that story. Every woman who arrived somewhere alone with a single suitcase learned to read that shape from across a room. She put the card in the inside pocket of her bag, the one with the zipper. Then she went down the steps toward the train, slower now, and she did not look back at the curb where the car had been, because there was nothing there anymore but the wet gray outline of where something heavy had waited and gone. Upstairs, on the 4th floor, in the empty studio, the folded renewal notice she had left on the piano lid was still there, still saying the same number to the same empty room. Down here, the girl's name went with her onto the platform. Yoon So-ah. Monday, 20 minutes. The arms. The train came. Kira got on. She found the pole and held it, and the doors closed, and the city slid backward past the glass, and somewhere behind her, in a long black car, a man she had met for 6 minutes was telling a driver he could stop being angry now, they could go. She did not know that yet. She only knew the weight of the card in the zippered pocket and the strange, unwelcome ease of having said, "The same rate everyone pays." To a man who had offered her the sky, and having watched him agree. She held the pole. The number in her waistband did not shrink. But for the length of one train ride across a gray city, she thought about the arms of a girl who had done the ugly thing all the way to the end, and not about the floor she was going to lose. Monday came at 4 minutes to 4, and Seo-ah was already at the bar when the black car pulled away from the curb without waiting. Kira noticed that first. The car left. It did not idle at the curb for the length of the lesson the way she had half expected it to. It turned the corner and was gone, and the girl stood alone in the empty studio with her hands on the wood, counting the seconds under her breath the way some children count stairs. 20 minutes, Kira said, setting her bag down. Just us. Show me the arms. Seo-ah showed her the arms. They were wrong in the way Kira had known they would be wrong. Locked at the elbow, pulled too high, the shoulders climbing toward the ears every time the girl tried to make them look correct. A child hunting for the shape, instead of the feeling of the shape. Lower, Kira said. She stood behind her at the mirror and did not touch. Pretend you're holding something round, a melon, a very expensive melon that your father would be upset about if you dropped it. Seo-ah's mouth twitched. The elbows came down half an inch. There, Kira said. That's the melon. Keep the melon. They worked the port de bras 8 times slow before the group class filled the room. By the 6th, the shoulders had stopped climbing. Kira said nothing about it. She had learned young that praise, laid on too fast, made a child self-conscious of the very thing you wanted to become automatic. So she let it stay quiet, and Seo-ah did the 7th without being told, and that was the whole of the win, and it was enough. At 5 the group broke, and the parents came up the stairs, and the black car was back at the curb, and Taejun was not in it. He was on the 3rd step of the stairwell, one hand on the rail, turno buttoned, watching the room through the glass panel of the studio door before he came in. Kira caught him doing it. He was not looking for his daughter. He had already found her. She was in the corner tugging her sock. He was looking at the room the way a man looks at a place he is deciding something about. She kept the melon, Kira said when he came in. He turned. The what? Ask her. Seo-ah, crossing to them, said, "You have to hold a melon, so Baba doesn't get upset when you drop it," in the flat, honest voice of a child, repeating a thing she has decided is true, and Taejun looked at Kira, and something in the angular face moved that was almost, not quite, a question about being made fun of. "I don't get upset about melons," he said. "You get upset about everything," Seo-ah said, and put her coat on. He let that stand. He did not correct her. Kira watched him let it stand, and revised, again, the thing she thought she knew about him. That was Monday. Wednesday, he stayed the whole hour. He did not announce it. He came at 4, and Seo-ah went to the bar, and Kira turned to tell him the lesson was private, only 20 minutes. He was welcome to wait downstairs, and he had already sat down. Not in the parents' chairs by the door, on the low bench along the mirror wall, at the far end, where he could see the girl's back and the girl's reflection at the same time. He took out his phone, and Kira thought, there it is. He'll sit and answer mail and pretend to be here. But he set the phone face down on his knee and watched his daughter's arms, and he did not pick it up again for 20 minutes. Kira taught the lesson as if he were not there. It was the only way to teach it. Halfway through, she said without turning around, she does better when no one's counting on it. I'm not counting on it, he said. You're sitting where she can see your face in the mirror. There was a silence behind her. Then the small sound of a man standing up and moving, and when she glanced at the glass, she saw he had shifted 3 feet down the bench, out of the mirror's line, into the corner, where his daughter could not accidentally check his expression between counts. Kira had never had a parent do that on the first ask. Most argued. Most explained that their child needed to feel their support, which was a way of saying the parent needed the child to feel watched. This one had simply moved. Thank you, she said. You know the room better than I do, he said, which was, she would think later, the first true thing he gave her. The conversations grew in the gaps. That was how it happened. Not in a rush, not across a dinner table, but in the 90 seconds while Seoul changed her shoes, in the 2 minutes at the top of the stairs, in the space between the last plie and the arrival of the other parents. Small rooms of time, and they filled them. He noticed the mirror had a fault line down the left panel, a hairline that split a dancer's reflection if she stood too far to the side. How long has that been there? He asked. Since before me, I work around it. Have it replaced. A mirror that size is 4 months of what the parents pay me, she said, and did not soften it, and watched him take the number in and file it somewhere. He wore a watch she had priced, once, in a magazine at a doctor's office, out of the same idle arithmetic she applied to everything. Platinum, thin, the kind of thing that costs a car. She thought about the watch and the mirror in the same breath and said nothing, because saying it would have been asking, and she did not ask men like him for things. That was a rule older than he was. He asked how Seoul got to the academy on the days he did not bring her. Kira said the girl came in a car. He asked how the other children came. Kira said most came by bus, the 240, which stopped a block down, and that half her students knew the exact seat they liked and fought over it. He was quiet at that, turning it over. A man who had a fleet and a driver, hearing that other children fought over a seat on a bus, and Kira saw him understand something about the size of his own daughter's world, and how small a corner of it he actually occupied. She's never taken a bus, he said. I know, Kira said. Friday, the 3rd private session, Seoul did the center combination without stopping. Not well. She lost the timing in the middle, and her arms went wide, and one turn landed a full beat late. But she did not stop, and she did not look at the mirror to see if it had been bad, and she finished with her chin up, breathing hard. Taejun, in the corner, out of the mirror line, watched his daughter not stop. Afterward, while Seoul drank from the fountain in the hall, he said to Kira, "Lo, she would have stopped. A year ago, she would have run out of the room. I believe you." Her mother used to say she got it from me, the stopping. He was looking at the doorway where the girl had gone, that when a thing gets hard, I go somewhere behind my own face, and no one can reach me. Seoul started doing it at 9, freezing, in the middle of things. At school, she'd stop reading out loud and just, stop, stand there. It was the most he had said at once. Kira let it sit before she answered, because she could feel it was a door held open a few inches, and doors like that close if you push them. The freezing isn't about the dancing, she said. It's never about the dancing. No, she's not afraid of the step. She's afraid of what your face does when she gets the step wrong. Kira said it plainly, the way she'd say a correction to a spine. The problem was never talent. She has enough. The problem is, she thinks disappointing you is the end of the world, so she'd rather freeze than risk it. A frozen girl hasn't failed yet. A girl who keeps dancing badly. She's out there in the open where you can see her be bad. That's the brave thing you saw today. She let you watch her be bad and didn't run. He did not answer for a long moment. His jaw did the thing she had first seen at the curb, the small hardening that in another man would have been anger, and in him, she was learning, was something closer to a man holding still so a wave could pass through without knocking him down. "You got all that from 3 lessons," he said finally. "I got it from 12 years of frightened children," she said. "She's not rare. What she's afraid of is rare, because most children aren't afraid of a father who moved 3 feet down a bench when a stranger asked him to." Something crossed his face then that she could not name and did not try to. He looked, for one unguarded second, like a man who had been told a thing he had needed a decade to hear and had not known it until it arrived. Then, Seoul came back from the fountain with her mouth wet and her coat half on, and the second closed, and he was the still man again, buttoning his daughter's coat with 2 fingers. He took out the phone at the door. Kira thought he was going to answer a message. He looked at the screen, thumbed it, and said, in the exact tone a man uses when he is pretending the thing he is about to say is administrative, "My schedule. I should have your number directly, for the days I can't bring her, so you're not waiting. The academy has my number." "I'd rather not go through the academy." She looked at him. He was holding the phone the way a much younger man holds a thing he has decided to do before he loses the nerve, and the pretext was so thin she could have put her hand through it, and they both knew it, and neither of them said so. 971, she said, and gave him the rest, and watched him type it in with a care that had nothing to do with schedules. "There's a place in Cheongdam," he said, still looking at the phone. "The chef holds a table on Thursdays. I'd like you to have dinner, not to talk about her." He nodded at Seoul, who was investigating the water fountain again. About whatever people talk about who aren't talking about a child. It was not smooth. That was what undid her a little, that a man who moved through the world with a driver and a held table could not, for this, find the smooth version. He asked her to dinner like a man crossing a rope bridge, 1 plank at a time, watching his own feet. "Thursday," she said. "Thursday." And then Thursday did not happen, and how he took that was the thing she would remember. She called him Wednesday night. She had the parent meetings, the spring assessment, the one night a term when every mother sat in a folding chair and heard, one by one, whether her daughter would move up. It had been on the calendar since autumn. She had simply, in the small, warm confusion of having said yes to a man, forgotten it, and remembered it standing in her kitchen with the assessment folders open on the counter. She almost did not call. She sat with the phone and thought about all the men she had watched turn, over the years, when a woman put something ahead of them, the cooling, the 2-day silence engineered to teach, the little punishment dressed as understanding. She thought, he will say of course, and mean the opposite, and Friday's lesson will have a temperature to it. She called anyway. She did not build a case. "It's Kira. I have to move Thursday. I forgot I have parent assessments that night. It's been booked since October. I can't push it. 22 families are counting on the times." She stopped herself before she over-explained, before she laid out proof like a girl who expected not to be believed. "I'm sorry. I should have checked my own calendar before I said yes." There was a pause on the line. In the pause, she braced. "Which night are you free?" he said. That was all. No cost extracted. No silence held over her. No question about whether the assessments were really that important. No offer to make a call and have them rescheduled, which, she understood, hearing what he did not do, a man like him could probably have arranged, and which would have been the worst thing he could have done, to reach into the one structure she ran alone and rearrange it for his convenience. Tuesday, she said. Tuesday, I'm free. Then Tuesday. A beat. The table holds. It'll hold for Tuesday. You didn't ask if the assessments could move. They're yours, he said, as if that were obvious, as if it were strange she'd remark on it. You don't move a thing that's yours because a man bought a table. She stood in her kitchen with the folders open and the phone warm against her face, and found she had nothing to say, because he had, without seeming to try, said the one sentence that walked straight past every defense she had built in 14 years of being a woman who owned exactly one thing and guarded it like breath. Tuesday, she said again, because it was all she trusted her voice to carry. Tuesday. Good night, Kira Simone. He used the whole name, the way he had at the curb, and hung up before she could decide what her voice would do next. She put the phone on the counter. The assessment folders lay open. 22 names, 22 small verdicts to hand down the next night in a room of folding chairs, each mother watching her face for the sentence. She had built that room. The academy gave her the studio. She had built everything that happened inside it, the trust of the mothers, the way even the frightened children came back. It was hers, in the way the mirror with its fault line was hers, in the way the floor she had paid for 2 summers ago was hers. Yukon section. She thought about a man who had said, "You don't move a thing that's yours." As if it were the plainest fact in the world, and she did not let herself make it mean more than it was, and she failed at that a little, standing there. Then she closed the top folder and opened the next, because Wednesday's kitchen did not care about Tuesday's table, and there were 22 verdicts to write, and she wrote them alone the way she had written everything alone, and only noticed near midnight that she had been half smiling at the counter for an hour without deciding to. The renewal notice was still on the piano lid at the studio, 4 floors above a dark street, saying the same number it had said all week. She had not told him about it. 3 times that week the sentence had come up the back of her throat. There's a lease I can't pay. And 3 times she had swallowed it, because telling him was asking, and asking was the one thing she would not do, not of him, not of the man who held a table on Thursdays and could make 22 assessments disappear with a phone call he'd had the grace not to make. She would handle the lease herself. She always had. She turned off the kitchen light and did not know, could not have known, that 4 floors above that dark street a lawyer had already asked, a second time, who really owned the Yehua building, and this time had gotten an answer, and had written a name at the top of a page, and the name was one she was, that very night, saying goodnight to. The maitre d' held the door, and Kira stepped through it 2 minutes early, which meant Taejun was already there. He stood when he saw her. Men she'd known stayed seated, and let a woman come to them. He crossed half the room instead, and the pause before he spoke told her he'd noticed the dress, and decided not to say the wrong thing about it. "You found it," he said. "You gave good directions." The silk of the dress moved with her, white pearl, cut to the line of her. She'd almost worn the blue. She'd stood in front of her closet for a full minute and chosen the one that asked more of a room. "Tuesday," she added. The chef held the table. "He owes me nothing. He likes you already and hasn't met you." A small thing, dropped flat, and it took her a beat to hear it as a joke. She let it land. She let herself smile at it. The table sat by the window, 3 floors above a Cheongdam street, already going wet at the edges. She noticed the rain before he did, a first fine mist beating the glass, and she noticed she didn't care. That surprised her more than the dress had. They ordered without ceremony. He asked what she didn't eat and remembered it. When the first plate came, he waited until she'd tasted before he touched his, and it wasn't manners, or wasn't only manners. It was the same attention he gave a cracked mirror panel, the same attention he gave the exact 3 feet he moved to leave his daughter's sightline. He watched the thing in front of him until he understood it. "You said not about her," Kira said. "I did. So, what do we talk about?" He turned the platinum watch a quarter turn on his wrist, the way another man might clear his throat. "You came at 22, with a suitcase. Seoul talks, Seoul listens, she reports." He almost smiled. 2 years in a company somewhere before. You never say where. Because it ended badly, and the ending isn't interesting. She turned her glass without drinking. A director who liked the shape of a dancer more than the dancer. "I left before I learned to make myself smaller for a room. That's the whole story." He was quiet a moment. Not the practiced quiet of a man building an answer. The other kind. "That's not a small story. It's an old one." She met his eyes. "Your turn. You never say what you do either. The card has 1 line." The waiter passed. Taejun waited for him to clear before he spoke, and she filed that away, the habit of a man who counted the ears in a room. "I hold things people can't hold themselves," he said. "Buildings, debts, arguments that would cost more to lose than to buy. That's not an answer." "No," he didn't flinch from it. "It's the answer I give at dinner. And the other answer? You'd have to want it more than you want the rest of the evening." He said it plainly, without weight, and yet it sat between them like a placed stone. Most people don't. They ask because asking is polite. Then they hope I keep the real answer. She turned that over. It was the most honest thing a powerful man had ever said across a table to her, that the mercy he offered was to stay a stranger. "You keep a lot of things," she said. "I keep everything." He looked at his hands a moment, at the platinum watch that had priced a mirror in her head weeks ago. "It's the only thing I was taught to do well." She should have pressed. 14 years of holding exactly one thing had taught her to press on the soft places before they closed. But the rain had thickened on the glass, and he was looking at her like a man who'd told the truth about the size of the lie, and she decided the lie could wait. That decision would cost her. She didn't know that yet. "Fair," she said. They talked past the plates. He told her his mother still called the family business the trouble, as though it were weather. He told her he'd learned English from a driver who quoted films wrong on purpose. She told him about the water stains on the depot ceiling that had been the studio before it was a studio, and how she'd painted the floor herself, one August, alone, on her knees for 6 days. She watched him hear the word. Alone. And said it somewhere careful. "You did the floor yourself," he said. "There was no one to ask." "There's a difference," he said slowly, "between no one to ask and not asking." She looked at him. The sentence had gone somewhere near the truth she kept in her waistband. The folded number that still sat on the piano lid 4 floors above an empty studio. Her jaw tightened, the one place she let anything show. He saw it. He didn't chase it. "There is," she said, and left it. The rain had committed by the time they reached the street. Not a storm, a full, warm, deliberate rain, the kind that doesn't ask whether you're ready. The maitre d' offered an umbrella from a brass stand by the door. Taejun looked at it. He looked at the water coming down in long silver lines under the streetlights, at Kira already 1 step out under the awning's edge, and he waved the umbrella away with 2 fingers. "You'll ruin the suit," she said. "It's a suit." He stepped out beside her. The charcoal jacket darkened at the shoulders inside 3 seconds. "You'll ruin the dress." "It's a dress." They walked. She didn't know where they were walking to, and neither, she suspected, did he. The silk drank the rain and turned to a second skin against her, and she felt him decide, very hard, to keep his eyes on the street. That made her want to laugh, and then she did laugh, out loud, at the sheer weight of the water and the ruin of the evening's careful clothes, and the laugh caught him off guard and pulled a sound out of him she hadn't heard. Low, surprised, a man laughing before he'd approved it. "You're soaked," he said. "So are you. You did it on purpose." "So did you." He stopped under a shuttered storefront where the awning gave nothing back, and it didn't matter now. Rain ran off the ends of her braids, off his jaw, off the dark line climbing the side of his neck. "You could have taken the umbrella. You looked at it and stepped out. I wanted to see what you'd do. And you left it in the stand." He turned toward her. The city noise had gone soft under the rain, and there was a distance between them of maybe a foot, the distance a careful man keeps, the exact 3 feet he'd moved to spare his daughter, halved and halved again and held. He would hold it all night, she understood. He would hold it because he'd bought a mesa and respected a canceled dinner and refused to be one more man who took what he wanted from a woman who'd left a room to keep from shrinking. He would stand in the rain and hold the distance until she told him not to. So she told him not to. "You can start by holding my waist," Kira said. He went still in the particular way she'd learned to read, as the opposite of indifference. She reached down, found his hand, warm, rain-slick, steady, and drew it to the curve above her hip, where the wet silk gave under his palm. His breath changed. She felt it change through his hand before she heard it. "Kira, I know." She stepped in, closing the foot of careful air herself, because she had spent 14 years not asking, and this once, this exact once, she would move the thing she wanted toward her own hand. She kissed him first. She rose the half-inch it took and pressed her mouth to his, and for a suspended second, he held everything back at once, the whole disciplined architecture of the man, and then his hand tightened at her waist, and his other came up to the wet line of her jaw, and he kissed her back, like a man setting something down he'd carried too long. The rain kept on. Neither of them moved out of it. A taxi hissed past and threw a sheet of water across the curb, and they let it miss them by inches without breaking apart. Somewhere a shutter rattled. The whole street had emptied of everyone with the sense to be dry, and that suited her. She had spent her life being the last one still working in an empty room, and this was the first time the emptiness had felt like a gift instead of a verdict. When she pulled back an inch, his forehead came to rest against hers, and he breathed like a man who'd run somewhere. "I had a whole plan," he said. "I was going to be patient about this for a long time." I noticed the plan. Her fingers were curled in the wet lapel of the ruined jacket. "It was a good plan. You destroyed it in one sentence. You can start by holding my waist," she said again, softer, and felt him almost laugh against her mouth, and this time, when he kissed her, there was nothing held back to spend. 2 days later, a car she didn't recognize was waiting at the curb below the Yehua, and the woman who got out of it was not there for a dance class. Kira saw her from the top of the stairs, silver hair drawn into a neat coil, a jacket the deep color of plum, cut close to a straight spine, a single strand of pearls, a jade brooch catching the gray afternoon. The woman stood the way people stand when they've never once in their life waited for permission to be somewhere. She looked up the stairwell as if she'd been told which floor and was only confirming it. "Miss Simone," not a question. The voice was low and even and carried without lifting. "I am Yoon Hee-suk, Taejun's mother, Seo-a's grandmother." A beat. "You have 20 minutes before your class." I checked. Of course she'd checked. Kira came down the last flight with her chin level and her hands loose, the way she taught the frightened ones to stand. "Then we shouldn't waste them." Kira kept her hands where the woman could see them, loose at her sides. "Would you like to sit?" "No." Hee-suk's mouth moved, not quite a smile. "You teach standing, so do I." They didn't sit. Hee-suk declined the studio and the cafe on the corner, both with a small motion of one hand, and they stood instead in the marble entry with the rain still spitting outside the glass. Two women a generation apart who had each built something and knew the cost of it. "My granddaughter sleeps," Hye-suk said. "You know this. My son told me it was you. He does not tell me things easily." Her eyes moved over Kira's face, the braids, the plain rehearsal clothes, and there was no cruelty in the looking, only a terrible thoroughness. "I came to thank you, and to say one more thing, which you will not want to hear." "Say it." "You are good for her." Hye-suk let that stand, clean, before the turn. "That is exactly why I am worried." Kira held her ground. "About what?" The older woman's hands folded at her waist. Jade turned inward. "My family's name is not a small thing, Miss Simone. It is not a thing you carry lightly, and it is not a thing my son ever chose. It was given to him the way the trouble was given to him, and he has spent his whole life deciding what to hold and what to set down." Her gaze sharpened without hardening. "There are things attached to that name, obligations, enemies my son inherited before he could read, people who watch who he stands near. A woman who stands near him becomes visible in ways she did not agree to. I didn't come to stand near a name. I came to teach his daughter to keep her arms up." "I know what you came for." Hye-suk inclined her head a fraction, a concession. "That is why she trusts you. Children know the difference between someone who wants the room and someone who wants them. My son knew it about you before he knew it." A pause, waited. "So did I. The moment he said your name without a title in front of it. He does not do that. Everyone in his life has a title. You do not. That is either very good or very dangerous, and I came to find out which." "I believe you," and she did seem to. "But he is already deciding things about you. I know my son. He decides quietly, and by the time you learn what he decided, it is done." The words dropped one careful degree. "He confuses caring for a thing with holding it. He has always confused them. It cost him a marriage. I would not like to watch it cost him this, whatever this is, before either of you understands what it is." The rain ticked at the glass. Somewhere above them a piano started. The intermediate class, Min Seo's count faint through the floor. Kira felt the old shape of the thing rise in her. The folded number in the waistband, the lawyer's question about who really owned the building, the platinum watch that could buy a mirror 4 times over. Pieces she had refused to let touch each other. "What did he decide?" Kira said. Hye-suk studied her for a long moment, and something behind the composed face flickered. Not evasion. Reluctance. The reluctance of a mother who had come to warn, and found she'd said the true thing a sentence too early. "I don't know all of it," she said. "I know he asked me last week whether a person could undo a mistake by fixing it faster than anyone could see." She drew the jade brooch straight with one finger. "I told him that depends entirely on whether the person he fixed it for asked to be fixed." She turned toward the door. At the threshold she paused, and the plum jacket was already beading with rain. "He is not a bad man, Miss Simone. That is the difficulty. If he were a bad man, you would already know to run." She stepped out into the wet. "The dangerous ones are the ones who love you the wrong way and call it protection. Watch what he does with the thing you built, not what he says, what he does." Then she was gone, folding into the car that had never turned off its engine, and Kira stood alone in the marble entry with the piano thin above her and the rain steady on the glass, and the whole warm memory of 2 nights ago going quietly cold at the edges, because she had heard, under everything the woman said, the exact shape of a warning about the one thing she had refused, all week, to ask him. She climbed the stairs slowly. The folded number was still on the piano lid where she'd left it. She stood over it and did not pick it up, and for the first time since the paper had come under her door, the question she'd been carrying wasn't, "How do I pay this?" It was, what has he already done about it? She sat down on the piano bench, still in her rehearsal clothes, the paper an arm's length away, and let herself remember the rain and the way he'd set something down when he kissed her back. Then she folded the memory as carefully as she'd folded the number and set them side by side and waited to see which one the week would prove true. Below her, a car engine that had never quite stopped pulled away from the curb and disappeared into the gray. The administrator's office smelled of instant coffee and toner, and Kira stood in the doorway with the renewal notice folded in her fist. She had come to sign it. That was the decision she'd carried down the stairs from the 4th floor. Sign it, take on the extra sessions, work 6 days instead of 5, and make the impossible number possible, one late night at a time. She had done harder arithmetic than this. Mrs. Bake looked up from her desk and set down her pen too carefully. "You didn't get the letter," she said. "I got the letter. I'm here to renew." "The other letter." Kira stayed where she was. The office had a window that looked out over the same gray street where a car had waited 2 weeks ago, and she found herself watching it instead of the woman's face. "There's a second letter," Kira said. Mrs. Bake opened a drawer, then closed it without taking anything out. Her hands didn't know where to be. The building changed hands. 2 days ago. It's not the same landlord you'd be signing with. It's not. The terms are different now. Changed hands to whom? I can't discuss the buyer. Changed hands to whom, Mrs. Beck? The woman's eyes moved once toward the hallway. Quick. The way people look when a name is dangerous to say inside its own walls. Then she pushed a single sheet across the desk. Not the renewal. A notice of transfer of ownership. Letterhead she didn't recognize. 1 paragraph. A stamp. At the bottom, the entity that now held the deed to the Yehua building. A holding company. 3 words she'd never seen. Kira read it twice. She had read the last important paper twice, too. She was starting to notice that about herself. The doubling. The way she made her eyes go over a thing again, as if the second pass might soften it. "Who owns the holding company?" she said. "I don't have that. You have it." Mrs. Beck folded her hands. "I was told the tenants would be contacted individually, about new terms, about accommodations." She said the last word like it tasted wrong. "The rent increase is off the table." "That's what I was told to tell anyone who came in to sign. Don't sign. Wait to be contacted. Accommodations." "Yes. For me, specifically." The woman didn't answer, and the not answering was the whole answer. Kira set the renewal notice she'd carried down, the one she'd come to sign, the one with the number that had kept her awake for 2 weeks, flat on the desk. She smoothed it once with her palm, then she left it there. She didn't need it anymore. Someone had made it disappear for her. She climbed the 4 flights instead of taking the lift. She counted them the way Seoul counted things, one landing at a time, because counting was better than the sentence forming underneath. In the Studio C, she sat at the piano and took out her phone. Min-so answered on the second ring. "Did you get a transfer notice?" Kira said. "A what?" "On the building. Ownership." A pause. Paper moving. "I got a... Hold on. Yeah, 2 days ago. Weird letterhead. I threw it in my bag. I figured it was nothing." Min-so's voice dropped. "Wait. Is this the thing? The lawyer asking who owned the building? Somebody actually bought it?" "Somebody bought it." "Kira, that could be good. New owner. Maybe the rent thing goes away. Maybe." "Maybe," Kira said, and hung up before her friend could hear the rest of the word bend. She knew. She'd known from the moment Mrs. Beck's eyes cut to the hallway. She'd known since a woman in a plum jacket stood in the marble hall and said, "Watch what he does with the thing you built, not what he says." She had folded that warning up next to the memory of rain, and told herself she'd wait to see which one the week would prove true. The week had proved it. She didn't call him. She wanted to see his face when she asked, and a phone let a man arrange his face in advance. He came on Wednesday for the private session, the way he came every Wednesday. The black car let Seoul out at the curb and pulled off, and the girl climbed the stairs counting under her breath and pushed through the glass door with her bag banging her knee. Taejun stood at the third step below, one hand on the rail, watching the room through the glass the way he always did, reading it, the mirror and the bar and the water-stained corner she'd painted herself 2 summers ago, on her knees for 6 days. Reading it like a man who owned it now. "Seoul," Kira said, kneeling to the girl's height. "I need 10 minutes with your father. Can you do your bari on your own? Just the pliés. Count them for me. I'll check when I come back." The girl looked between the 2 adults with the quick animal attention of a child who has lived inside 1 divorce already and knows the weather of a room before the grown-ups do. "Are you fighting?" "No," Kira said. "We're talking." "That's what my mom said too." Kira didn't have an answer that wouldn't be a lie, so she squeezed the girl's cold hand once, warmed it, and stood. "Pliés. Count them." She walked out to the landing. Taejun followed. She let the glass door close so the girl was on the other side of it, dancing, a small figure at the bar in the bright room, and Kira stood with her back to that light so the man had to face it. "You bought the building," she said. He didn't insult her by pausing. "Yes. All of it, not my floor, the whole thing. The whole thing was what was for sale." "Don't." Her voice stayed low, level, the count voice she used to keep a room from turning to look. "Don't hand me the version you'd give at a dinner. You told me that once. The real answer only comes to whoever wants it more than the rest of the night. I want it more than the rest of my life. Why did you buy it?" The tattoo showed above his collar when he turned his head toward the street, and she watched him decide how much to be honest. "You couldn't pay the increase," he said. "You don't know that. You've had the notice on your piano for 2 weeks. You haven't signed it. You count your students on the train." His eyes came back to her. "You have 31. 31 at your rate doesn't reach the new number. I did the arithmetic in about the time it took you to say you take the same fee everyone takes." Something went cold and precise in her chest, colder than the 12 degrees she hadn't felt walking without a coat, colder than the rain. "You did my arithmetic. I solved a problem. You solved my problem without asking me if I wanted it solved, without telling me you were doing it. You reached under my life and moved the one thing holding it up, and you did it in the dark, and you were going to let me find out from a woman at a desk who was too frightened to say your name." "The rent increase is gone," he said. "That's what I did. You keep your studio. You keep your rate. Nothing changes for you, except the thing that was going to take it away is gone. I removed a threat. That's all You removed the floor." She heard her own voice crack the level and dragged it back. "This?" She put her hand flat against the cold glass, the studio behind it, the mirror with its fault line, the corner she'd painted, the room that had been a storeroom with water stains when nobody in this city would rent her a real one. "This is the one thing I built with no one standing over it. I came here at 22 with a bag. Nobody opened a door for me. I painted that floor on my knees. Every centimeter of what's behind this glass, I made alone, and it was mine. In a way, nothing has ever been mine, because no one gave me any part of it. And now the part that was going to be taken belongs to you." She said it soft, and it landed harder than a shout. "You didn't remove the threat, Taejun. You became the landlord. I don't dance in my studio anymore. I dance in your building. I teach at your permission. Every month I don't pay a bank or a stranger. I pay you, or worse, I pay nothing, because you've arranged for me to pay nothing, and either way I am a woman being kept in a room by a man who liked her. His jaw moved. For the first time since she'd met him, the unreadable face was working at something it couldn't hold. That's not what this is. Your mother told me what this is. She watched that land. She watched his weight shift back a half-inch, the tell so small she'd have missed it a month ago. She came to me, 2 weeks ago. She told me you confuse taking care of a thing with holding it, that it cost you a marriage. She told me to watch what you do with the thing I built, and not what you say about it. Kira's throat tightened and she let it. I watched. This is what you do. You buy it. You put your name on the deed of the only thing a woman ever made without you, and you call it removing a threat, and you expect me to be grateful the way— She stopped. The way, he said. The way a project is grateful. The way the new interesting thing a powerful man found is grateful, right up until she's furniture in a room he owns. Her hands had begun to shake, and she pressed them flat against her thighs. I have spent 14 years being sure of exactly one thing, that I don't belong to anyone, that whatever happened to me, I did it, and it was mine. You spent 2 days and a lawyer taking that away, and you did it as a gift. Through the glass, Seoul had stopped at the bar. The girl was watching them now, both hands on the wood, her small face turned, reading the weather. Kira saw her and lowered her voice further, and hated that even here, even now, she had to manage the room. I would have lost it, Kira said. The studio. Maybe. I'd have fought for it, and I might have lost. And that would have been mine too. My loss, my fight. You took the fight away from me before I knew there was one. You didn't save me from losing it. You saved yourself from watching me lose it. Those aren't the same. And the fact that you can't see the difference is exactly what your ex-wife saw. That reached him. She watched it reach him. Watched the mention of the marriage go in like a blade finding a seam. And for 1 second she almost stopped, because hurting him gave her no pleasure, and she was not a person who mistook damage for winning. But she had learned, at 22, in a company where a director loved the shape of the dancer more than the dancer, exactly what it cost to let someone make you smaller in the name of caring for you. She had left before she learned to fold herself into a room. She would not learn it now at 28 from a man she'd kissed in the rain. Undo it, she said. I can't just— You bought a building in 2 days. You can sell it in 2 days. Or transfer my lease to an actual owner, a stranger, a bank, anyone whose bed I'm not. She caught the word before it fully arrived. Anyone I don't know. I'll pay the new rent. I'll work 6 days. I'll take every private session in this city if that's what it costs. But I will not teach in a room you own to keep me in it. And if the number doesn't work, he said, if you do all of that, and it still doesn't reach, you'll lose the studio to prove you didn't need me. Yes. The single word sat between them. He looked at her like a man recalculating something he'd been certain of, and finding the certainty was the error. That's not pride, he said, quiet. That's— you'd rather drown than take the rope. It's not a rope when the person holding it also owns the water. She stepped back from the glass. You don't understand the difference. I know you don't. That's not a cruelty. It's just true. And it's why I can't do this. Behind the door, Seoul had come off the bar entirely and stood pressed close to the glass now, both palms flat on it, her breath fogging a small cloud at mouth height. Kira turned and saw her, and felt the whole thing tear a second way, because she had promised this child. Segunda. 20 minutes. Just us. We fix the arms. And she had meant it, and the child had started to sleep because of her. She opened the door, knelt, warmed the cold hands one more time. You did your pliés? 8. The girl's eyes were huge. Are you going away? I'm your teacher on the days you have class. Kira kept her voice even. It took everything. That doesn't change today. I'm going to finish your session. Come on, show me the arms. Hold the melon. She led the girl back into the bright room and did not look at the man on the landing, and she taught 20 honest minutes of ports de bras to a child holding an imaginary melon so her father wouldn't be disappointed, and she kept her own arms soft and her own face open the entire time so that nothing in the room would know that its teacher was coming apart at the exact center of the one place she had ever built. When the session ended, the car was at the curb. Seo-ah went down the stairs counting. Taejun stood a moment longer in the doorway, and Kira stayed at the piano with her back to him, straightening sheet music that didn't need straightening. I'll fix it, he said. Don't fix it, that's the hole. She pressed her lips together. Just tell me who really owns it. Give me a name, a number, a person I can call. Let me handle the rest myself. That's the only thing you can do now that helps. He didn't promise. He said nothing at all, which she had learned was the sound of a man who couldn't yet imagine handing a problem back unsolved. Then the door closed, and his steps went down, and a car she now knew the ownership of pulled away from the curb. Kira sat until the room went from gray to darker gray. She did not turn on the lights. She took out her phone and opened the contact she'd saved. 971, the rest. And her thumb hovered over it and did not press. Then she opened the browser instead and typed the 3 words from the transfer notice, the holding company, and pressed search, and began, alone, in the dark, at the piano she had bought used and the studio she had painted on her knees, to find out exactly how deep the man she'd kissed in the rain had reached into her life while she was busy trusting him. The first result loaded. She read the registered director's name at the top of the filing. She already knew it. She just needed to see it written down, the way she'd needed to read every important thing twice, because the second time, finally, it stopped being a thing that might not be true. His name, on the deed to her floor. She set the phone face down on the piano, next to where the renewal notice used to be, and for the first time in 14 years, the woman who owned exactly one thing owned nothing at all, and had, she understood now, handed it away herself, one trusting evening at a time. The woman who came looking for Kira 2 days later did not ring the studio buzzer. She waited in the marble hall, near the radiator, in a camel coat with a leather bag held in both hands. And when Kira came down the 4 flights counting nothing at all, the woman said her name like a question she already knew the answer to. Kira Simone. Kira stopped on the last stair. She had never seen this face, but she had seen the shape of it. Softer, tired at the eyes, the mouth Seo-ah made when she was deciding whether to be brave. I'm Han Ji-won, the woman said. Seo-ah is my daughter. Kira came down the last step. She set her bag on the radiator cover and folded her hands and said nothing, because the last time a member of that family had found her in this hall, the visit had ended with a warning she was still carrying in her teeth. You know who I am then, Ji-won said. I know whose you were, Ji-won almost smiled. Everyone in that family says it like that. Whose? As if a person is a room you can be assigned to. She looked at the stairs behind Kira, up toward the 4th floor, the way a person looks at a place their child has been happy. She talks about you. In the car. She never talked in the car, with me either. A year of silence, and now I can't turn her off. Her voice did not break. It thinned, which was worse. He bought the building, Kira said. She wanted it on the table before anything softer could be laid over it. Did you come to tell me why? I came because he won't. Ji-swan moved to the radiator and set her bag beside Kira's, 2 bags on a cold metal cover, and that small thing, sitting her burden next to Kira's, undid something in Kira's shoulders she had been holding for 2 days. May I tell it wrong first, so you can correct me? You think he did it because you're a project. A new thing a powerful man found and wanted to keep in a case. That's the version that fits. It's the version that fits a different man. I was married to the man it fits before. She looked at her hands. Taejun is not that. I need you to understand that not to defend him. I owe him no defending. She turned. I need you to understand it, because if you leave believing the wrong reason, you'll spend the rest of your life guarding against a thing that was never coming for you. Kira did not move to the stairs. She had a private session in 40 minutes. She stayed. When Seo was 6, Jiwon said, she stopped talking for a month. Not sickness. She'd seen us fight. Not loud. We never went loud, that was the problem. We went quiet and cold, and she learned to read the temperature of a room before she learned to read a book. She decided the safest thing was to make no weather at all. Jiwon's thumb moved over the strap of her bag. Taejun sat with her every night that month, didn't push, read to her, waited. And the whole time, I watched something happen behind his face that I didn't have a word for until much later. What? He was building a wall around her, not to trap her, to catch her. Jiwon looked up. He decided that night, I think, that he would never again let the ground move under her without knowing first, that he would get ahead of every fall, that if he was fast enough, thorough enough, quiet enough, she would never have to feel the floor tilt the way it tilted in that house. Kira's jaw did the thing it did. Jiwon saw it, and unlike her son's mother, she named it. That's the same face he makes, Jiwon said. The one you just made, the one that says, I will handle this alone before I let anyone see it cost me. She said it without cruelty. You two are more alike than either of you would survive admitting. Kira said, the divorce was not another woman. Jiwon's voice was flat and clean. I need you to hear that, because I think you've been building a story where somewhere there's a great love he never got over, and that's why he keeps a distance, and that's the wall you keep hitting. She shook her head once. There is no other woman. There never was. The thing that ended us wasn't a rival. It was that. She nodded at the space between them, at the shape of what she'd just described. He couldn't stop managing the fall. He'd solve a problem I hadn't finished having. He'd move money to fix a fear before I'd spoken it out loud. He loved me by removing the ground from under my feet and calling it safety, and I stood in a house where nothing could go wrong, and I could not breathe, because a life where you're not allowed to almost fall is not a life. It's a display case. Furniture in a room he owns. Kira had set it on the landing 3 days ago, to his face, thinking she'd invented the wound. She had only found a room he'd already emptied once before. So I left, Jiwon said. And do you know what he did? He didn't fight it. He didn't manage it. For the first time he let something break without racing ahead to catch it, because I told him the catching was the breaking. She pressed her lips together. And then, a year later, I watched him buy a building. Kira crossed to the window that looked out on the curb where black cars sometimes idled and did not, today, idle. She kept her back to Jiwon for a moment, because there are things a face does that are nobody's business. He's not keeping you, Jiwon said behind her. He's terrified of losing her again, of Seo waking up in a world where the one room she finally feels safe in has a landlord who can raise a number and take it away. You are that room now, this studio, you. He looked at the arithmetic. 31 students, your fee, the new rent, same as you did, and he did the only thing his hands know how to do with fear. He got ahead of the fall. She let a beat pass. He didn't buy the floor you built to own you. He bought it because he cannot bear to watch a child he loves lose a floor a second time. The building was never about you being his. It was about her never being unsafe again. Kira turned. That's still control. Yes. Jiwon did not flinch from the word. It is exactly control. That's the whole tragedy. His love and his control come out of the same hand, and he has never once been able to tell them apart. The obstacle was never a rival. It was never money. It was that he learned, in a cold, quiet house, that the way to love someone is to make sure they never feel the ground move. And that lesson has cost him every single thing he's ever actually wanted to keep. She picked up her bag, including me. And it will cost him you, if nobody makes him see the difference. I couldn't. Maybe you can. I don't know. But you deserved the real reason before you decided. She moved toward the door. At it, she stopped. He asked me something, years ago, Jiwon said. Whether a person can undo a mistake by fixing it faster than anyone can see. I told him no. I told him the fixing was the mistake. She opened the door to the gray street. He asked me the same thing last week. Different words. I gave him the same answer. She looked back once. This time, I don't think he believed me. I think he's finally starting not to believe me. That's the most hopeful thing I've seen him do in 10 years. The door closed. A car that had not been idling pulled from somewhere down the block and was gone. He came on Friday, not in the car. He came up the 4 flights on foot, and Kira heard it. The wrongness of feet on stairs where an elevator and a driver had always erased the climb, and she was standing when he reached the top. He had papers. Not a folder, not an AIDS leather case. Loose pages in one hand, held the way Seoul held a bar when the count got hard. I cancelled it, Taejun said. Kira did not reach for the pages. The purchase. He set them on the piano lid, next to the pale rectangle where a renewal notice had lived for weeks. It closes back to the prior holding by Monday. The rent increase. I could not undo the removal of it without exposing you to it again, and I would not do that to punish myself. So the building's new terms hold for every tenant. The increase is gone. That stays. But I don't own it. I never will. He stepped back from the piano, putting the pages between them instead of himself. And this is the owner. Name, number, the real one. You wanted to choose your own landlord. Choose. Kira looked at the pages and not at him. Why? Because you were right. And because my mother's ex-wife found me on a Tuesday and said a thing I've been not hearing for a decade. His voice stayed level. Only his hand, flat on his thigh, gave anything away. I confused loving a thing with holding it. I have done it to everyone. I did it to Jiwon. I have spent a year terrified I was doing it to Seoul, and the proof that I was is that I did it to you inside of 6 weeks and called it arithmetic. He looked at the fault line in the mirror, the crack he'd once ordered replaced. You almost fell. And instead of standing next to you while you did, I bought the floor so you'd never know the feeling. I took the one thing you owned, and I made it mine so it could never hurt you. That's not the same as loving you. I'm 40 next year, and I only learned the difference this week. Kira picked up the pages. She read the name. She read the number. She folded them once and held them, and did not put them in the inside pocket with the zipper, and did not throw them away. The recital's Sunday, she said. Seoul wore white and pale rose, a performance tutu, and she was 4th in a line of 8, and she was so small the front row had to lean. Kira stood at the wings in a soft gold dress, elegant, the one she'd bought 2 summers ago and never had a reason to wear. Taejun sat in the 3rd row. Beside him, straight-backed silver hair in a tidy knot, jade at her collar, Yoon Hae-suk. Beside Hee-suk, in a camel coat, a leather bag in her lap, Han Ji-won. The 3 of them in a row, and none of them touching, and all of them watching the same small girl. Seoul found her mark. The music took her. She did the arms, the melon, held cheap and precious, shoulders down, and for 16 bars she was better than she had any right to be. Then she missed. A turn came a beat early. Her foot landed wrong, and the whole line moved on without her, while she stood a half-second behind the count, with the fault line running straight through the middle of her. Kira's hand closed on the curtain. Seoul did not stop. She did not look at the wings. She did not look for her father's face to read the weather. She found the next beat, ugly, late, entirely her own, and she took it, and she caught the line by the following phrase, and she finished with her chin up and her eyes forward, the exact way a woman had taught her that descending is a choice you don't have to make. Taejun's hand covered his mouth. Heesuk's did not move at all, which for Heesuk was the loudest thing a hand could do. Jiwon cried without sound, the way she did everything. They found Kira after, in the emptying lobby, and Taejun did not introduce her as the teacher. "This is Kira," he said, to his mother, to the woman who was watching. "She's with me." Hyesuk studied Kira the way she'd studied her in a marble hall over coffee she wouldn't drink. Then she inclined her head, a small, complete motion, the bow of someone conceding a point she'd argued in good faith. "You watched what he did," she said. "And not only what he said." "I did," Kira said. "He changed what he did." "Yes." Hyesuk's eyes went to her son, then back. "I did not think he could. Note that I am not often wrong." And that, from her, was a blessing. Soa barreled into Kira's legs, still in her tutu, hair coming loose from the silver clip. "You saw," she said. "I messed up, and I kept going. I saw." Baba didn't make the face. Seoul looked up, checking, the way she used to check a mirror. "He didn't make the face when I fell." "No," Kira said. "He didn't." That night, at the apartment she'd been to only once, Kira sat on the floor while Seoul showed her every corner of a room, and near the end of it, without ceremony, without deciding to, the girl said, "When I go to Uma's, I tell her about you. And when I'm here, I want to call you." She stopped. She tried it. "Ioma." The room held still. Kira did not correct her fast, the way a careful person corrects a beautiful mistake. She got down to the girl's eye line, the way she'd learned to on a cold afternoon weeks ago, and she said, "You have a mother, Jiwon. She loves you more than the whole city. I don't take her place. Nobody does." Seoul considered this with her whole serious face. "I know," she said. "I didn't lose her." She frowned, working it out, and then she had it, and it was so simple that Kira's throat closed. "I just got someone else to love. You don't run out. You don't run out." 14 years, Kira had owned exactly one thing, and had built it alone, and had been so certain that to let anyone stand on the floor with her was to hand the floor away. She had spent a season learning she was right to guard it. She learned, on a carpet, from an 11-year-old, that she had been guarding the wrong number the whole time. Taejun stood in the doorway with the folded pages still on the piano 4 miles away, a landlord's name she had not yet called, a floor that was hers to keep or lose by her own hand now, no one racing ahead to catch her. Kira reached out and tucked a loose strand back toward the silver clip. "No," she said. "You don't run out." She had come to this city at 22 with one suitcase and a certainty that a life built alone was the only kind that couldn't be taken. She had been almost right. She had built the floor. It was hers. She'd only been wrong about the part where she had to stand on it by herself. If you want to watch all the stories without any ads and also get access to bonus scenes, extended epilogues, and exclusive spicy chapters, head over to our Patreon. Scan the QR code on the screen. The link is in the description or in the pinned comment. See you there. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever built something with your own hands? A studio, a career, a life? And watched a powerful person try to protect it until it no longer felt like yours? Have you ever confused someone's need for control with love, or mistaken your own fear of failing the people you cherish for care? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about independence, healing, and love that adds instead of replaces, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.